Jenny here. Welcome back to my garden and welcome to day 23 in my Holidays in the Garden series. So today I'm going to do my backyard garden tour for December. Every month this past year I've been doing a front yard garden tour and a backyard garden tour with the goal of looking back at the end of the year so that we can see the progress, right? The progression of my garden throughout the whole year. And that day is today. We are going to be looking back today on everything that my backyard garden has gone through over the past 12 months. Yesterday, I posted my front yard garden tour and that also had the look backs in it. And it's just so interesting. You know, you kind of forget what your garden was 12 months ago. Like I was thinking about this back garden and what it's been through because, you know, I can kind of look at it and say, oh, nothing that much has changed. This is probably going to be kind of boring. No, I used to have landscape rock. I didn't have a painted fence. A bunch of the plants have changed. Things have changed and I would have completely forgotten it had I not documented it with video. So like I said in my front yard garden tour, I encourage you all to do the same thing for 2023. Take a quick picture, take a quick video with your phone, just so next December you can look back and see what your garden has progressed and become and evolved into over the year. So like I said, I'll take you through a couple areas of my backyard and then I'll do a little voiceover and we can see what the garden looked like starting in January of 2022. Okay, so let's get started with my December backyard garden tour with this north-facing area of my back garden. This area is probably the most important part of my garden because it's what we see when we're sitting in our living room, walking down the hallway, or in our dining room. So it's really important to me for it to look really, really nice. So this was actually the first area of my entire garden that I started focusing on, and I absolutely love it. And it really hasn't changed too much over the past couple years. I have 3 Hall's Japonica honeysuckle growing up this pergola. This pergola was here when we moved in, so I have a lot of people ask me about the pergola, but really I don't have too much information about it other than I know it was very expensive because I found the receipt from the contractor in the box of, you know, household information the previous owners left us. So I know it was expensive and I'm very thankful to have it, but that's pretty much all I know. I don't even know what type of wood it was. So the honeysuckle grows on those 3 pergolas, and then in between each honeysuckle is a limelight hydrangea, just a regular, not a limelight prime. And then underneath that, this is kind of the new thing, is I planted lamium to use as a ground cover. And I am so happy with that. I think it'll be so beautiful, especially because I have my bird feeders right above this limelight hydrangea. So they are messy and they drop all their seeds, and I always have a ton of weeds under here. So I'm hoping that once the lamium covers the whole area, those seeds won't be able to germinate as well. And so hopefully it'll help me not have to clean up the weeds all the time from the birds. Then coming over here, I have my trio of pots from a company called MPG Planters, and they kind of look like concrete, but they are absolutely not concrete, and I love them. I think they're so beautiful. They're not too expensive. I got them from Home Depot online. This is the antique white color, and I'm in love with them. I want more for sure, but they're actually really, really hard to find. I have a Texas privet in this one, ball topiary, and then I have a juniper spiral in this one, and then I've actually recently taken out sparkling amethyst superbena that I had in this one that I absolutely loved, but it was just time to take it out. And then the last thing I wanted to show you over on this side is this whole shade garden bed right here. First thing I'll point out, look at the fence, look at the blackness of it. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm so happy with this paint color. This is Bare Slate from Home Depot. I love it. I was nervous about painting my fence this color, but you'll see the comparison to the earlier months in the year where the fence wasn't painted. It's absolutely night and day. It was such a good decision. This whole area back here, it kind of stumped me for about 6 months of this past year, and I didn't really know what to do. Now I have an idea. I have a plan. My parents gifted me with a bench that's going to go right over here, and I actually just purchased some pots. I have a plan for everything that I want this area to look like. It hasn't been implemented yet. So that will be coming in 2023, but there has been a lot of changes in this area on the north side of my garden. So let's take a look back starting in January of 2022, and we can see what this area looked like. So here we are back in January of 2022. You can see I have landscape rock and I have a bare wood fence, and it still looks pretty, but just not as nice as it does now. It is such a difference between January and what it looks like now. I cannot believe how much stuff has changed. So back in January, we had already posted on Craigslist for free landscape rocks, and people had started coming back in our backyard and scooping the landscape rock, so you can see the landscape fabric that I have there. And I look back on this, and hindsight is 2020. I wish I had grabbed all that landscape fabric out and gotten rid of it. Here in February, we had gotten a huge delivery of black mulch, and it made such an incredible difference. I really like black mulch. I think it looks nice and clean, and it actually softens the area for me as compared to landscape rock. I really, really think it made it look a lot neater, a lot cleaner, and a lot softer, which was really important. And then it was kind of like a blank slate, and I could start adding in all my plants that I wanted to put there. Come March, things kind of stayed the same. In this area, this is when I started having kind of a gardener's block, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in this back area. It kind of stayed this way for a couple months, and nothing really changed in this area. And I think the reason why is because I really needed to address the bones of the area. I needed to address the mulch, and I needed to address the fence. I kind of had a feeling at this time that I probably needed to paint that fence, but it just seemed like such a daunting task. I kept thinking of a way to get around it, and then finally later on in the year we decided just to go for it and paint the fence. And I'm so glad I did. Here you can see April, when things should be blooming and looking gorgeous. It's still looking blank in that shade garden area. I did put some annuals in these MPG planters with my topiaries. Those are starting to bloom out and look really, really beautiful. The Supertunia Royal Velvet is gorgeous. And then here in May, April and May is really when my honeysuckle goes crazy, and it smells so incredible outside in this area. It's my absolute favorite part of the garden in the spring, just simply because of the smell. Here you can see my annuals in May, and then I'm showing you in this garden tour, it is still a complete blank slate. It's almost kind of embarrassing to look back and see how many months I just left it exactly like this. And I think I talked to you all about it in every single garden tour and talked about what I was thinking, what I was planning to do, what I was making decisions on, and I just made no change on it. And that's okay. That's just part of it. So here we are. I think we're in July at this point. The honeysuckle has kind of stopped blooming. It started to fade out still a little bit, but not a ton. The annuals and the limelight hydrangeas are just gorgeous. When those guys are in bloom, it is such a sight to see. My shade garden bed still has absolutely nothing in it, but take a look at the fence here in July, because as soon as we hit August, that's when Jason and I started painting the fence, and that made some big changes back here. Really big changes that I'm really proud of. You can see the black fence just makes everything pop. It makes those purple flowers pop. It makes the limelight hydrangeas pop, and then you can see I actually even started planting in that shade garden bed off to the left, because my gardener's block had kind of been lifted, and I actually had an idea of what I wanted to go there. And as of right now, December 2022, I know what I want to plant in that shade garden bed, and I'm really excited to get going on it. So here you can see nothing there, but what I'm pointing out in September is that I have plans. I put this bench here and these two pots here because that's kind of a placeholder. It's what I'm planning to do this upcoming year, and I actually already have the bench and I already purchased the pots. I actually just purchased them yesterday. So the annuals are starting to fade in September, and then come October, things are starting to look pretty much done for the season. My limelights actually did really well this year because we had such cold nights for some reason during this fall. So instead of my limelights turning like an ugly dead brown, they turned almost like a coppery color in October. You can see right there. Absolutely beautiful. And as of right now in December, it's still looking really pretty, and I have zero urge to cut them back, which I'm really, really excited about. So my plan is to leave those limelights on. Look at that. Look at that with the sun shining through in November. Oh, it was so beautiful. And our limelights really don't usually look like that. This was a unique year. Okay, and then moving over here, this area is looking really good. This is the east side. My Schubertii alliums are coming up like crazy. I'm so excited to see these. These I planted fall of 2021, and only 4 of them came up. I planted a ton of them, and only 4 of them came up last spring. And I was kind of disappointed, and I just thought, okay, well, it is what it is. They're all coming up now. So I didn't even plant these this year. These were from last year, and they just took a year to sprout. I don't know. I'm just going with it, but I'm absolutely so excited about it. I cannot wait. Schubertii alliums look like little fireworks, and what's so wonderful about them is that you can dry the seed heads, and they look like they look like fireworks, literally fireworks. So I actually used my dried seed heads or bloom stalks in my 4th of July flower arrangements. So if these all bloom, I'm so excited. I'm going to have so many of those to use in flower arrangements. I can't wait. And then over here, I wanted to do a look back of my 3 white pots that I have right here. Doesn't look like much right now, of course, because I'm not doing anything with it. I'm still cracking up that I still have blooms going on. I have Supertunia Mini Vista Pink Star, and then I also have Suncredible Sunflower. I have more over here as well. It's just too funny. It's, this is the south side of my house. It's, light color. And so it's definitely the warmest spot in my garden. And so these plants are actually doing really well, but they're coming out. So I'm not going to leave them in for next year, but I wanted to show you guys a look back of what these 3 pots look like, starting from when I planted them with my Proven Winners annuals and then going all the way through. So let's take a quick look back at those. All right, and here we are back in January of 2022. It was a dark and dreary day, and there was not much going on. I had cut the bougainvillea way back so you can see a lot of the house because I wanted to train it a little bit more controlled, and it's something that I still need to work on as of today, December 2022. Here's February. Here's where we added in the black mulch, replaced that landscape rock. It made such a difference in this area because this is a south-facing wall. It is about the hottest spot in my garden during the summer. So putting mulch in versus landscape rock really made an absolute huge difference. I had annuals in these 3 pots at this time. They were left over from the fall before, and I was planning to take them out, but at this time, I was just enjoying them. I really was. Same with March. March, my bougainvillea, it's Barbara Karst bougainvillea, it really started blooming. It started being really, really happy, specifically that one kind of in the middle, and things just started growing like crazy. That bougainvillea, I mean, I have cut it back so much this year. I fertilized it a little bit with hibiscus and palm fertilizer this year. I don't think I will do that again next year just because it almost was a little too crazy. Here we are in April. You look at how happy this bougainvillea was. Oh my goodness. It's just, oh, I just love this plant so much. But like I said, it was almost a little too happy. And if a bougainvillea is a little too happy, it's just going to go absolutely crazy and take over. And it's going to be really hard to control. So I actually don't think I'm going to fertilize it this year. Here in May is when I planted my Proven Winner annuals in these 3 white pots. It was so beautiful. I had the Supertunia Mini Vista Pink Star, I had the Augusta Lavender Heliotrope, and the Suncredible Sunflowers. And I think they looked the absolute best in May. They were in for about a month at this time. But then you can see they started going crazy. The Suncredible Sunflowers were enjoying the heat so much that they were just growing growing like crazy. I think that had I just put one sun-credible sunflower in these pots, and these are huge pots, I think that it would have been perfectly fine. So here in July, I actually cut the sun-credible sunflowers back. You can see the Mini Vista Pink Star is still going crazy. I'd actually cut those back too, if you can believe it, but I had to cut these plants back. It was a tough thing to do, but otherwise they would have just absolutely taken over. And you'll see as August and September go on, they really start to take over again. These guys are vigorous. You really only need one or two of these plants to fill out a big pot. It is such a good bang for your buck, especially if you fertilize every week and you stay on top of it. Here we are in September. Things got a little out of control. Around this time of year, I usually get kind of tired. You know, I don't prune as much as I should, and things start getting crazy. I actually really liked this area because it was so crazy, and it was so crazy with color, but it was a bit much. So here in October, I had just cut everything back. I haven't even cleaned out those 3 white pots even to today because I don't need to worry about frost or freezes here in Northern California. So this is kind of what it looks like still today. Here you can see November, and it's kind of just more of the same, and as of December it kind of looks the same as well. So come next year, I will change out those pots, put in some new annuals, and enjoy a whole new show. All right, and then moving over here, this is my veggie garden. You can see I have my purple hyacinth bean. This one is absolutely done. I need to get rid of it. I need to take it out. That one is not surviving till next year. Their zones, they're hardy to zones 10. So this one though, this one is surviving, and I am going to leave it if I can. I will, you know, I'll probably cut it back to here to like do a rejuvenation prune if it lasts through the winter. But so far that's looking fantastic, and I'll be so happy if that one lasts and I can use it again for next year. Even though, I mean, look at all the seeds I have. I have so many seeds. Like, this whole pod is just filled with seeds that I can use for my purple hyacinth bean. I can't get them out with one hand, but you guys get the point. There's like 5 seeds in there. So the other thing I wanted to show you all was my veggie garden. The wattle fence was new this year, early this year. I absolutely love it. I will be adding to it to make it a little bit taller. Yes, there's chicken wire over here. Sadie, my daughter, and I, we planted like a bunny salad bar so that she can have some food for her bunny. That's, can you guys see her? She's watching me. She's always watching me. So a little bunny salad bar, it was a total fail because this chicken wire did not keep the birds out at all. We even kind of tied it together a little bit and made it a little bit better. And you can see they just kind of jump on it, and then that's how they get in. So there's a couple plants here, like the carrots they haven't addressed, and I don't know. There's just some other things that they haven't really bothered, but you know, we'll grow the carrots for the bunny. And then my fountain was new this year that I absolutely love. I had been wanting this fountain from Campania International for so long. I ordered it from a garden center up in Redding, and they got it in, and I am in love with it. And because of where we live in Zone 9B, it gets to run all year long. So I get to enjoy that sound all year long. Oh, here she comes. She's just the cutest thing. I love her. She's so fun to have out in the backyard. I think this area had one of the biggest changes this past year. And this is what my kitchen garden looked like, or my veggie garden looked like. At this point, I hadn't even decided that I was going to make it into a veggie garden or to do the wattle fence that I had. It was in January and February that I added this wattle fence that I made myself. I love it. It changed everything. It absolutely changed everything. It kind of sectioned off the area and made it into my vegetable garden. And I think it will be forever known as my little vegetable garden right next to my kitchen and our table that we eat dinners at during the summer. I think it's just amazing. Those are Big Love tulips, and then also Super Venus sparkling amethyst. Here in March, I had planted my veggie starts. Some of them I had grown from seed, like those lettuce leaves back there. Some of them, actually I think all of the ones that I had in March I had grown from seed. Later on in the year, I had added in different starts. Here in April, you can see things are just kind of starting to grow. It hasn't kind of hit its stride yet. You will see in May, things just get crazy. I put one summer squash and one zucchini in there. Yeah, that was probably a bit too much. There's my zucchini and there's my summer squash in May, and they doubled from this size later on in this month. It just got to be too much that I ended up having to take both of these things out, just because the area is not big enough. I think something that I want to do in the future is look for one of those dwarf squash plants. My mom has grown one of those, and I think that they stay a little bit more size controlled and don't get so crazy. Right here, I'm showing you my cucumbers that I grew up the trellis, the string trellis. That worked really, really well. And then I have my purple hyacinth beans starting to grow up my pergola right there on the left. So this whole veggie garden, I mean, it really started to, you know, take its own path May and beyond, and it got to the point that it was in control. It was driving. I was just going along for the ride, which actually made it really fun. I loved this vista sitting at our table, just looking out and looking at those white pots. Here we are in June. You can see that zucchini plant is just getting absolutely crazy, along with the cucumbers. I think this is the month I started to get a little bit nervous about my veggie garden, because I knew my tomatoes were going to start getting big as well. Here is when I ended up taking out that zucchini plant and that squash plant, and I replaced it with a pepper and a Marconi pepper and then a small cherry tomato. And even those ended up getting really, really big by the end of the year. August was a fun month because that's when I got my Juliet fountain from Campania International. I absolutely love it. It will always stay there. I can hear it inside when we're sitting on the couch, and I think it was such a fantastic addition to my veggie garden, and I'm so, so happy to have it. Then things started, you know, kind of slowing down a little bit. September, I got my tomatoes, but they were kind of finishing up. My wattle fence was still doing really well. I was shocked that it was holding up so well. I will probably do some repairs to it and fix it a little bit, January and February. But I'm really happy. You can see how well it held up over the year, and we were not careful with it at all. So October, I had cleaned everything out, and then come November, my daughter Sadie and I put in a bunny salad bar, and yeah, the birds were hungry. That's all I have to say. The birds were very hungry. I think I need to buy some of those cloches to protect it, because this wasn't working. Okay, then over here on my patio area, I wanted to show you all the pots that I have here from my annuals. So we could do a look back. There's the bunny again. We could do a look back on these pots to see what, how they evolved over this year. So right now, these pots all have a bunch of different bulbs planted underneath them, and then they have pansies and violas planted on top, and they're very, very pretty. They're doing really well. A couple people asked me if the bunnies eat them, and she doesn't. She can't reach. The funny thing is, I did put some compost in here, and I saw my dog licking the compost in these pots. I mean, I was just like, Stanley, get out of there. It was disgusting. But he's a beagle. He just gets excited about that kind of stuff. So let's take a look back of these pots, and we can see what they look like over the past 12 months. So here's my patio area in January. We had a very dry January and February this past year. So I could actually take my covers off my couches, and we actually came out here and hung out around the fire pit. So I didn't have much blooms going on in these 3 pots. I had some snapdragons that I had from the fall before, and then I had some purple alyssum and some cyclamen, and that was pretty much it. Here in February, this is March. I skipped March because nothing was happening in February. March, the snapdragons had grown a little bit. The alyssum had grown. Over here off to the right, the alyssum had grown a lot, and it was really, really beautiful. And from planting that alyssum right there, I have seeds that I call my flower weeds, and they grow in the cracks right down below it, and they're purple alyssum, and they're beautiful. I love my flower weeds, and they're from these plants right here. So it was very pretty, not a ton of color, but come April, my snapdragons started blooming, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was hard to take out the snapdragons in April because they were so pretty. Here I'm showing you some sweet peas that I had growing just behind it, and my Meyer lemon tree. That was gorgeous, but the star of the show in April was my snapdragons. These were just in the 6-packs. They were like $2.99 for a 6-pack. They were so cheap, but because I had planted them the fall before, they had gotten huge, absolutely huge, and the stalks were really thick, and they were just loving their life, and we enjoyed that color in April immensely. Come May is when I planted my Proven Winner annuals. These were such a joy. It was so much fun. My favorite one was that yellow pot right there in the front. That was the lemonade stand recipe, and I was shocked that the yellow one would be my absolute favorite, but it was such a joy just to walk out and to see this bright pop of yellow right there. I loved it. Those Supertunias are called limoncello, and I planted them in the landscape, and they did okay. But since I planted them in the pots this past year, they thrived in the pots. Look at that. Look at that in June. It was so beautiful. They were so incredibly happy, and I just thought it popped. I just thought it was such a wonderful pot to have. Other than that, I had James Britannia, Safari Sky, and then I had some Salvia, and I had some other Superbenas as well. The pollinators were all over these plants. They absolutely loved them all year long. I did fertilize these plants once a week throughout the growing season. Since they were in pots, they needed that food from me, but I really do think they enjoyed it. Here was July. We started to get hot because they were in white pots and they were in full sun. I think that they started to suffer a little bit from the heat that we had. And then even into August is when we had our very, very intense heat wave. Things started to suffer just a little bit. You can see I lost quite a few of my blooms. I did end up cutting back some of the plants. That's why that yellow pot kind of looked a little smaller than it was before, because I had actually did a rejuvenation prune. Unfortunately, I did it right before the August heat wave, not knowing we were going to have such an intense heat wave. So they did suffer a little bit, but they ended up bouncing back, and they were totally fine. So I have that Sunstar Pink Pentis, and that one did really well. But as the season went on, and as all the other flowers started to fade away in September, that Pink Pentis kind of came into its own. It's almost like it didn't like the triple digits, but in the high 90s, it was absolutely happy as a clam. Here in October, I had pulled everything out. Well, really, I had just cut it back. I was lazy and actually didn't pull it out. And this is pretty much what it's looking like now, other than the fact that I did plant bulbs in these pots, and then I did cover them with some pansies and violas. So those are looking pretty. Look at that Pink Pentis. Isn't that gorgeous? So yeah, so it's not too much of a change, but they went through a lot this season. I think they handled things very, very well, and I can't wait for next year. All right, everyone. And then the last thing I wanted to show you, I won't do a look back of this because I don't think there's much to see. There's not much change, but I did want to show you all my hydrangea that I have right here that I got from my neighbor. It's doing so incredibly well. I need to get it planted up. I'm going to plant it up over there in the shade garden bed over in that area, probably behind the bench when I put the bench in. And then I do have this Meyer lemon. It's not a tree, Meyer lemon shrub that's doing very well. I have a bunch of lemons on it that I'm very excited about. But the thing I wanted to show you is my Pinkaboo Camellia. I absolutely love this plant. It's so wonderful to see blooms like this time of year, and there are buds absolutely everywhere. Do you see all those buds? Bud there, bud there, bud there. They're everywhere. So this plant is going to keep blooming for me for, you know, another month or two. I'm so excited about it. I absolutely love camellias. And then over in my shade garden bed, I forgot to show you, I am going to put my debutante camellia right over there. And that one has a lot of buds on it as well. So ready to go. All right. So I hope you all enjoyed this December garden tour of my backyard and a look back of 2022. I enjoyed this year so much with all of you and taking you around every month on my garden tours. Thank you so much for watching, because when you all watch, it gives me the opportunity to show off my garden, which is one of the main reasons why I started my YouTube channel in the first place. You know, us gardeners just love showing off our gardens. So I appreciate you watching. I appreciate all your sweet comments. I hope you all have a chance to get into your garden today, and I'll see you tomorrow.